Welcome back, friends. I'm Jessica, your storyteller who spends half her time in Minecraft and the other half in Reddit's crazy world. Today's stories are too good to miss. Let's get started. Story 1. I know how it sounds. I know I sound crazy. I'm not crazy. I'm not. About 2 years ago, I was at a bar with my friends. I don't tend to go out and drink. I don't like clubs or raves or big events with loud music. I like people and socializing, but generally in a more relaxed environment, like a house party or something. However, I was convinced to go out by one of my close friends, Andrew. He was cheated on by his girlfriend about a week prior, and he lived by the philosophy of to get over someone, you must get under someone new. I never understood that mentality, but since he was there for my last breakup, I thought I'd be there for his. I spent most of the night sipping on cheap whiskey I overpaid for in the back, watching my friend talk to this girl he's been trying to impress with his dance moves that seem to imitate the dance of a bird looking for a mate. Strangely enough, it seemed to be working. I wasn't really looking to find a girl myself. After my last relationship ended, I kind of swore off dating. Not really because it ended poorly. We are still friends vaguely, just too much to deal with emotionally at this point in my life. I felt like I needed to be by myself for a while longer to figure out who I am and what I truly want. Until that night, when what I truly wanted accidentally bumped into me, spilling her drink all over me. I looked up and I saw her. She was panicking and apologizing about spilling her gin and tonic all over me, but I was just trying to catch my breath after she stole it with her eyes. I mean, this girl was gorgeous, not supermodel status or anything, but just something about her. She felt like the girl next door you'd have a crush on in elementary school when you first started to discover that girls don't have cooties, and if they did, it was worth getting. I remember this night vividly like it happened yesterday. It was all so surreal. After the general apologies that were shared her for making my white button-up with rose designs all over it soaked, and me for, well, I don't know what I apologized for. I just felt like I should say sorry for breathing the same air as her. She finally asked me my name. Desmond. Hey, Desmond, my name's Mary. We proceeded to talk all night. She was wonderful. She was a psychology major in her final year of her bachelor's degree, planning on getting her PhD and minoring in philosophy. She loved hiking, dogs, smoking weed, and kids' cartoons. Her favorite thing to do, she said, was taking walks at night. She said it was just the perfect time to do so. Everyone's asleep, so it feels like the world is yours, and just yours. She was funny in a witty, punny way. We talked so long my friend's dance moves finally got the girl he'd been talking to all night. He came up to tell me he was leaving, and he'd give me a ride home if I wanted. But I told him no thanks. I'll just walk home. I'm enjoying my time. Mary and I went on a walk that night until the sun came up. I swear I was already in love. We We shared phone numbers and set up a coffee date in a couple of days. Months went by, and everything was going perfectly since I worked weekends and she went to school on weekdays. The only time we could hang out was at night. We watched movies at the theater, went on walks, and cooked dinner at my place. We never went over to her apartment. She said she lived in one of those 4-bedroom places with 4 random people, where everyone shares a common room and kitchen, but pays for their individual room as rent. At nights, they would throw parties that were filled with drunk college kids, or they would be up late in the common room studying with each other. So it was always my place we'd go to. She always had issues with her roommates, so I wasn't ever going to push to go over there 'cause, frankly, based on her stories, I wouldn't like them much either. After about a year of dating, a little over a year ago, she randomly knocked on my door. She was supposed to be studying for her midterms with her roommates, so I wasn't expecting her, but I gladly let her in. She was crying something fierce. I quickly sat her down, asked her what happened while making her favorite caramel tea we get at a local tea shop. She explained to me that her and her roommates got into a massive fight, and she had to get out of there. She talked about how she hated living with them, but she couldn't afford to move out. I, without skipping a beat, asked her to move in with me. My lease was ending, and I was already looking at this 2-bedroom outside of town that isn't too far away from her college and my work. We talked about it all night until she finally agreed with me that she would. Her biggest fear was she didn't have much money to help with the lease, which wasn't an issue to me seeing, as I was planning on moving there with or without her. After she moved in, the first 3 months were amazing. Everything went smoothly. She was happy, I was happy. We were learning to live with each other and grow with each other. I knew I was gonna marry her, until things started getting weird. In the last 9 months, looking back in hindsight, there were dozens of instances that just felt off or out of nowhere. For example, she has met my parents, which my mom loved her, but I never met hers. When I asked her about it, she started to tear up and explained to me that they died when she was in middle school. She was on a field trip in school, and when she got back, her parents weren't there to pick her up. After waiting a while, she said a cop came up to her and told her that her parents died in a car wreck. Apparently on their way to pick her up, a semi T-boned them running a red, and they died on impact. She lived with her grandma until she was 17, and sadly, her grandma got cancer and passed away right before her 18th birthday. I felt it to be strange that after a year and a half, she is just now telling me, but I just assumed it was a touchy subject and left it there. Another strange thing I noticed is she didn't really have friends, nor was interested in making them. I never heard any stories about them other than a classmate saying something funny or dumb in class. I tried to set up a double date with Andrew and Christy, the girl he met at the bar, but she usually had an excuse of being too tired from school or it wasn't the right time. It always felt like the only person she hung out with was me. In the last 2 months, she started to become distant. It wouldn't be anything major. She'd just talk less and focus less on conversation. She didn't want to go on walks that much. She stayed late at school to study. She missed dinners more frequently, and most of the time I wouldn't see her until I woke up in the morning, and she was in bed next to me. I was planning on talking to her about this haze she was in, but I was praying that it was something harmless like her finals, just eating up her time or stress of graduating and seeking employment. Our relationship was pretty solid, so I don't think it was her cheating on me or breaking up with me. However, I started to get worried the more and more she came late, or how much she slept in the day. She slowly stopped eating more than some fruits and snacks. I was worried she was getting sick, so I begged her to see a doctor to get a checkup. After a couple of weeks of her saying she was fine, but clearly wasn't, she gave in and told me to make an appointment. That appointment was set for last week, August 1st. It was set for 9:30 a.m., which doesn't seem early, but for 2 night owls, it was a rough wake-up. I got up to the alarm and went to roll over to wake her up, and she wasn't there. I figured she just didn't sleep well and woke up early, so I got up, got dressed, and headed into the living room. No sign of her. I started to call out her name to be met with the silence of an empty apartment. I walked outside to see if she was out there, or took our car somewhere, and our car was still there. I started to freak a little. I went to call her, but when I went to my phone, her name wasn't in my contacts. It confused me, because how could I accidentally delete a contact? I quickly dialed her number manually, only to be met with "This line has been disconnected" or "out of service." I started to tear up. At this point, I assumed she ran away or something. It was the only logical excuse I had, but why go through the effort of deleting my contact in my phone just to disconnect hers? Why would she just leave? Nothing in our relationship was going badly, and I thought, after all we've been through together, I at the very minimum deserved a note or a conversation. Hell, an email, just something. My brain went full force, so I called Andrew. He picked up, still hungover from the night before. I could tell, because he still was slightly slurring his speech. "What's up, bro? Why you calling so early? You know I was at a party last night." Bro, she left, disconnected her phone, deleted her contact in my phone. She left, man, she just left. Who left? Mary, who else? Calm down, man. First off, who's Mary? Are you fucking with me right now? This is not the time to mess with me. Dead ass dude. I don't know who Mary is. I'm not messing with you. My heart sank on that sentence. I was so confused, my mind racing 1,000,000 miles a second, and none of it was making sense. What do you mean you don't know Mary? She's my girlfriend, the one I live with, the girl at the bar. We've been dating for 2 years. You haven't dated anyone since Jessica. Are you okay? Did you take any drugs last night? Do I need to go over there? I just hung up the phone. I just couldn't in that moment. I needed to go look for her. The first place that came to mind was the college. I sped over there as fast as I could and ran into the lobby of the main building. "Hi, can I help you with anything?" Yeah," I said in the calmest demeanor I could muster. "I'm looking for my girlfriend. I was seeing if she had any classes today or something." "What class would she be in? And what's her name?" "Mary Fulbright, and I think the earliest class would be psychology with Professor Jackson." She started to clack on her keyboard for what felt like eternity. "Well, psychology class won't start until noon, and Professor Jackson won't be here until 10. But I don't see any Mary Fulbrights on the attendance register." "What do you mean?" "She's on her master's right now. She's been going to this college for 5 years now." "How could she not be on the registration?" "I don't know, sir, but I don't see her here. You can ask Professor Jackson when he arrives if you want to go to his room." "It's room 312 in Building C." I sprinted out there and found the building and the room. I sat there trying to slow my shaking down. I could barely breathe. A mixture of fear and confusion was raging through my body to the point where it was the only thing I could notice. I barely caught Prof. Jackson as he walked by me. I rushed to him. "Hey, I'm so sorry to bother you. The receptionist lady told me you'd be here soon. I was asking about my girlfriend, wondering if you'd know anyone she takes your first class." "Mary Fulbright." "Who?" he responds, caught off guard and confused. "Mary, she is getting her master's. You've been her teacher for 2 years. I'm sorry I don't know a Mary. Do you have a picture of her?" I grabbed my phone and opened the gallery. I started looking through the images, and all of her pictures were gone. Any selfie she sent that I screenshotted just wasn't there. Then I noticed something strange. We went to a national park last weekend. I requested the day off. We had a stranger take a picture of us in front of a statue at the hub, her idea. I have that picture, but she wasn't in it. I was just standing there smiling by myself. I almost dropped my phone. At this point, I was breaking. I looked up at the professor and apologized and excused myself before I was about to fall apart. I sprinted outside, my breath out of control. Nothing felt real. I scrolled through my entire phone and nothing. Any pictures we were in together. It was just me. I was even doing a weird hand placement, like I was relaxing my arm on an invisible person. Nothing of just her. I called my mom in a panic, just trying to get something to ground me. She's met her dozens of times. She has to know. It rang and rang and rang. And finally, "Hey, sweetie, what's up? You okay? Hey, Mom, do you know Mary Fulbright?" "No, am I supposed to?" "Oh, okay. Thanks anyways. I'll talk to you later. Love you." I quickly hung up the phone. I spent the last week looking for any evidence of her existing. It felt like my mind was fractured and nothing was real. Maybe Andrew was made up. Maybe my job was made up. Maybe this is like Shutter Island and I'm in a mental hospital. I felt like I should be in one. Hell, I was about to check myself in if it wasn't for me going back home and looking at a picture. All the pictures of her weren't there anymore, like they never were there in the first place. Our lease only had my signature. All her schoolwork and clothes aren't on the desk or closet anymore. I was defeated until I looked at my desk after sitting on the couch shell-shocked, like I just lived through D-Day, trying to figure out why my memory of her was so vivid, so detailed, until I saw a picture. She wasn't in it, but it was a picture of me on the couch. She loved that picture of me. The thing was, she was the one who took it. If she didn't take it, who did? It was the only evidence I had to show that she was real, that I wasn't crazy. I've been researching ever since. People's disappearances, people's stories, seeing if there's anyone with something like mine. That's why I'm writing this post. I found a couple of stories online. No connection to Mary, but the people were saying the same thing. Their significant other disappearing out of the blue. Their fear of going insane. Some lost their minds. Others moved on. I found a small group still looking, still believing. I have a ticket to Peru. That's where one of them, someone who is going through something similar, his name is Tom, is at. He said that there's a lead of someone who might know what's going on. A shaman or something. I don't know. I don't care. I will find you, Mary. That's why I'm posting this on Reddit. Mary, if you are reading this by chance, I know you exist. I'm looking for you. I'll find you, I swear. I'm not crazy. I will find you. First story done. Now it's time to see what twists the second one brings. Story 2. I've always been obsessed with roller coasters. There's just something about the way they defy gravity, defy death, rush you to the very brink, teetering at the edge where anything can go wrong. Yet, somehow, everyone returns safe and sound at the end, at least most of the time, right? There are some roller coasters that have been famously dangerous, like the Jetline in Sweden, a popular coaster that ran for decades. But after replacement, parts weren't properly tested. One of the coaster's trains derailed, fatally, or at Six Flags, where restraint on the Texas Giant coaster came undone, and a woman was flung from the ride to her death. In my town, there's a small Six Flags style theme park. I won't tell you the name, but you've probably heard of it in the news recently. In any case, it's mostly rides and carnival games. I've been an operator there for the past few months, but there's one roller coaster that no passengers are allowed to ride. It's funny because I see them test running it all the time. One day I even went and asked a fellow staff member, Markesha, when they were going to open the new coaster. She said never, and I couldn't tell if she was serious or joking. I asked her again. She said with a shrug, "Boss says the ultimate has got some sort of bug." Anyway, fast forward a couple months, and Markesha and I are kind of casually dating. She's nerdy, snarky, and a few years older than I am. We're pretty different, but maybe that's why we get along. one thing that unites us is our passion for roller coasters. The ultimate still isn't open, and one afternoon she suggests that maybe we ride it ourselves after the park closes. Wait, for real? I exclaimed. Yeah, I mean last time everything got safety checked, it passed all the checks. Plus, I saw someone on it yesterday when it was running. There's literally nothing wrong with it. I think it's just superstition. The boss won't open it to the public. He's convinced it'll go wrong, like the first time, he says. The idea of there being some flaw in the Ultimate's design that could be dangerous gave me pause. But Markesha was at least as well versed as I was in all the ways theme park rides can kill you. Anytime there was news of another theme park death, we talk about whether it fit into our top 10. Mechanical failures, obviously, are big on our list. And design failures, like the water slide that decapitated a 10-year-old boy. Then there are human errors. We often argue whether to count fatalities from visitors trespassing in fenced-off areas, and then getting whacked by mechanical parts. I don't really count these since, well, it's kind of like when people play on train tracks, not to be mean about it, but in those situations, you can't really blame the rides. Anyway, the Ultimate didn't have any mechanical issues or design flaws, so in theory, it should be safe. Like Markesh had said, it had recently been tested for any engineering problems and passed with flying colors. It ran smoother than our flagship roller coaster, the Cobra. Neither Markesha nor I had pre-existing health issues, and the design of the Ultimate was nothing extraordinary. It had only one giant loop, and further on a smaller one. Despite the name, it was actually less intense than the Cobra, our most popular coaster. Probably the coolest thing about it was its design. A jet black roller coaster with sinuous curves like a serpent. So anyway, Markesha and a friend of hers, Carlos, and I all agreed to meet after the park closed and try out the Ultimate. Staff were still cleaning up around the park, but it was deserted of visitors when I went to meet Carlos at the main entrance. I remember Carlos and I walking toward those ominous black loops of the Ultimate and seeing the coaster running as Markesha put it through one more test run. Either another employee or a test dummy was in it as it shot by. It was very fast. Not fastest in the world, but damned if it wasn't fastest in the park. Dude, that thing is awesome, exclaimed Carlos when we got to the ride's entrance. Markesha told me everything checked out fine and that she and Carlos would go first. I started to object, but she said, "Nah, I get first dibs. I'll run it for you again after." "Woohoo, let's do this," said Carlos. "Let's do this," shouted Carlos. Like all modern roller coasters, pretty much everything was automated after pushing the button for it to go. The main part of my job was the safety checks beforehand, making sure everyone was strapped in, nothing loose, no belongings to go flying off and hurt someone, etc. I sighed and performed the requisite safety checks on Markesha and Carlos, tugging their harnesses to make sure they were strapped in. The rest of the train was, of course, empty. Come on, let's go, hooted Markesha. Let's do this, shouted Carlos. I pressed the button and sent them on their way. The coaster began, its 2 passengers shouting and waving, and slowly ascended the incline to the park's most precipitous drop. I watched, trying not to feel envy. Oh, I'd get my turn. But I burned with the desire to go first. I watched as that sleek black train climbed to the very top, hung for a moment at the peak, and dropped like a bullet. Screams from my 2 friends as they plunged, their hands up, waving, laughter on their faces as they flashed by. And then they were looping. I lost sight of them for a moment from the operator area, so I came out from under the roof and looked up. They were heading toward the second loop. But oddly, there was another passenger, somewhere at the back of the train car. But I could have sworn it was empty when they boarded the ride. As they spiraled into the second loop, I waited for renewed screams and laughter. But the roller coaster looped silently, winding on this hypnotic track, and then taking the big slow circle around back to the start. Not a sound from it. The click-clack of the train's arrival, and then the hiss of brakes. At the front, I could see Markesha and Carlos slumped in their seats. No one else in the train with them, and no movement from either of them. I did not immediately go to unbuckle them. I was too much in shock, because why weren't they moving? Were they both unconscious? Had they hit their heads, been jostled too hard? But the ride looked so smooth. Suddenly, another infamous roller coaster came to mind. One that had been designed, but never constructed. Markesha and I used to debate about whether it would be fantastic or terrifying to ride the euthanasia coaster. The idea is that 24 riders board and pass through 7 loops. And when the ride comes to a stop, they are all dead. The roller coaster's loops become tighter and tighter, the G-forces inducing prolonged cerebral hypoxia, insufficient oxygen to the brain. If you were a rider on it, you'd pass out and be dead before coming to the ride's end. To me, the concept is horrible. Markesha always said it would be a terrific way to die. I still didn't have the courage to approach her or Carlos. There was another staff member walking by outside the ride, pushing a drinks cart. I screamed for help. She came up and went to the roller coaster and swore, and then got on the phone. Emergency services arrived and unstrapped Markesha and Carlos. The next day, the park opened as normal. The incident didn't even make the news until much later, since there were no traumatized crowds or blood or cleanup. Just the 2 bodies unstrapped and quietly carried away, and a roller coaster that remained out of commission as it had always been. I'm haunted by the fact mine was the hand that pushed the button. But the ultimate was examined, and all test runs with dummies proved safe. There's no explanation. The ride remains closed due to the bug that Markesha mentioned to me back before she decided we should try to ride it. has become kind of an urban myth among the staff there. They test the coaster again every once in a while, running it without anybody on it. They never put anybody on it. But I learned later that the bug isn't a design flaw per se. What the boss calls the bug is actually a passenger, a rider that can always be seen in one of the seats near the back, even when the coaster runs with no one in it. A passenger who always appears after the first loop. At least, it used to be a single passenger. Now there are 3. And that's the end of today's stories. I hope you enjoyed it and that you're feeling relaxed. Take your time, get comfy, and I'll see you in the next video.